Hello Croxies, it's your boy Josh. Now aside from the average gamers and even the average lucked gamers, I think it's important that we revisit a unit that I've shilled ever since I got a hold of her in the beta test all the way back in 1.6. That's right folks, Sambi! Sorry, posted to Josh. This is the right script, right? I don't think it's supposed... okay, thank you. That's right, folks. Trigger is one of the most sought after characters in Zenless. And if you haven't been around the discourse in the zzzero community, buzzwords like versatile, flexible, stunning, beautiful, gorgeous, voluptuous. Whoa. Hey guys. How's it going? So Trigger, huh? Trigger is arguably one of the top 5 units in the game due to her amazing playstyle. Character who actually desires to stay off-field to do most of her work, and boy does she contribute to teams. But how does she do it? And is she still effective in our late Q3 of the big 2.5? It's time to reevaluate Trigger and see why a character who wants you to wail for them is so sought after by most, if not all, Zenless CCs. Let's get into it. Alright folks, let's first start with her basics, and by basics we mean her aftershock. See, one of the previous defining traits of stun characters was their abilities to utilize off-field attacks to contribute to stuns. Think Trigger and Jufufu. Even though their singular hits aren't terribly strong like Lycon or Lighters, their overall build-up to their onslaught of attacks would overwhelm opponents, leaving them dazed in no time. Then you have her EX specials and prone position attacks that allow her to quick assist backwards to your offensive character, and you have a recipe for an available buff paired with items like Astro Voice or King of the Summit, which we'll mention more build stuff later in the build section. But since this is a re-eval, I'm not going to go through the whole kit. Please check out this video in the card to review how she plays if you're really out of the loop, because there are some intricacies that I want to focus on outside of her base kit. Yet there is this one question that this whole video brought you in for. Josh, why is Trigger considered a Whales character, and why is whaling for Trigger more beneficial for her than most other characters? Well, my fellow Gooners, let's start focusing on the meat and potatoes on why she gets so much value out of her vertical investments. Let's start off with the first vertical investment, her debut engine. Her signature, the Spectral Gay, is arguably considered half of her kit as a contributor to buffs and damage. Yes, aside from stunning and providing daze with aftershocks, Trigger can also provide a 35% complete stun damage multiplier able to be applied out of stun, which stems from her core, then a 25% defense shred, which is arguably one of her strongest shining points. Consider the 25% a whole pen disc 5 attached to your character. Yeah, that's how good this thing is. Yet with its shortened duration, the activation requirement is aftershocking, which you should generally be within your coordinated support state or have a healthy bar of her gaze to allow the opportunity to provide that support 100% of the fight. And yes, this means crouching down at least once per every other pre-stun rotation, but if you're using things like Astral Voice, whether on her or your support you have in the third slot, that back assist is assisting you to set up for more damage. Then let's not forget about the Spectral Gaze providing 24% crit rate as its substat. Quite the unique advanced stat considering almost every other stun agent's signature has and have provided impact before. Yet this is to Trigger's benefit, as this allows her to reach her staggering 90% crit rate threshold for a max 75% daze increase, this trumping the assumed 18% impact we'd assumably get with a regular build. And it's a bit hard to calculate how much the 25% defense shred will help characters because that varies between your carries, but said crit rate that we mentioned can go into one of her best new sets, the King of the Summit, allowing Trigger to provide more support from the rear. I mean, she's shooting from my behind. I mean, she's providing rear end support. Huh? So with her exceptional abilities to stun whilst allowing for your DPS to build up their own resources and applying all these extra bonuses to boot, what's not to love about Trigger? And I know we've been talking about her best signature and best drives, but check out this updated infographic guide that will help you gauge the best builds for your account. Make sure to download and share this all over Twitter, Discord, and even our very own YouTube community posts. And sure, most unconventional DPS characters like Alice or Miyabi can't force Trigger to use her additional passive, but the sheer volume of attacks is still enough to provide you with 3 stun windows, which is what you would have gotten anyways. So from the construction perspective, you can see why Trigger is so sought after. Now let's get into the applications and include the conversation about the Mindscape 1 and beyond. But before we jump into that, do you guys know what character we love aside from Trigger? That's right, Hugo. Ladies, calm down. He's just existing. Come on. But I did get a chance to visit Anime Impulse and meet the man and legend himself, Jimmy Yamaguchi, and we'll be raffling off these signed posters, keychains, and t-shirts to you. All you need to do to enter is subscribe and comment down below on our next few videos. And you're gonna subscribe anyways because you want more Zone Zero content, right? So let's start the conversation with Trigger's gameplay. When starting off the battle, Trigger will most likely be one of the first characters you'll start with, just so you can get some pop shots on the boss to gain your purge stacks. Then once we got 4 shots in, we'll have a full battery charge that can spark some aftershocks with your harmonizing shots. Yet there is one itsy bitsy issue with these aftershocks. See, there's a specific cooldown to your regular aftershocks, and then Tartar Shock, a 3-second cooldown for regular and a 2 times for 20 seconds for the larger aftershock. Albeit this is not necessarily a bad thing as the amount of off-field application is so strong, but what if we had the training belts off and allowed ourselves to aftershock per 2 seconds instead of 3? This would mean an increase of 50% of attacks, meaning 50% more damage, 50% more days, and even 50% more electric application. All this to say that this increase in application is that much greater, and we haven't even gone to the best part. Because you're using more, we figure that we need more battery to keep us going. So they've increased the total amount of purge to 125, then the accumulated prone shots by 25%, allowing you to get a full bar off the same 4 shots. This is incredible for the quality of life as well as overall performance. And to nail the head on the coffin, as we mentioned, Trigger grants a 35% damage bonus from her core ability. Well, it's time to bump that up by 20%, additional percent, baby. I'm not gonna lie, this feels like the Wheel of Fortune, where if you win big, you get a cash prize, car, boat, all expense vacation, and the keys to the goddamn city. This buff is so strong and enhances everything that Trigger's platform was built off of. This means faster time to stun, more consistency with off-stun aftershocks, and increased overall damage. It's just a win-win that everybody on the roster can actually take advantage of. Let's compare 2 runs here, one with Trigger at M0 with a very similar setup pattern with a side-by-side to the same comp at M1. Both have equal weapons and all equipment. The only thing that changes is that M1. And boy, this is a difference maker, because if you can get to this stun point as fast in the next 2 stun windows, you could potentially fit in 4 if you're diligent, meaning that much more damage. As veterans understand in this game, the impact in days are contributors to a results-based analysis, meaning whether we get 2 or 3 or 4 stun windows, that's the whole point of impact in the first place. So with more application going out, Trigger now becomes an absolute demon. Then mentioning M2, it's honestly not as punchy with a 24% total accumulated crit damage bonus for the team over 4 stacks. M3 and M5 are stat bonuses, but don't sleep on them, which for a stun character not only improves the damage, but the days. Then M4 will add on an additional attack when an ally helps to apply a Tartar Shot, allowing you to dish out an attack worth 200% of Trigger's attack and 120% days of Trigger's impact. This shot is honestly not that great either, yet can contribute within the margins of runs if you're wanting to push the limits of the units. And let's not talk about the M6, which attempts to make Trigger a DPS but falls short on many accounts, as Trigger requires so many buffs to actually make her attacks work, and she would still like an attack or same attribute to make her said DPS work, and that attacker would probably need to have some buffs on their own to make it work. And if it were to work, how could we test that out? Well, folks, as we wrap up the conversation around Trigger, I know this video might be slightly discouraging from other creators who say that she's still usable at the F2P level. And I'm not gonna kid you, I believe she still can be. But if there were any character you'd want to invest into higher, it would be Trigger. She not only maintains her great status as one of the premier stun options, but now has become a potential elite employee of the new attack duo of Seed and Orphie. And again, make sure to subscribe to the channel as we try to churn out the fastest and most up-to-date content for you guys. Thank you so much for watching our Trigger reanalysis, and we'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like. All right, make sure to comment for the Hugo giveaway. Yeah, it's pretty cool merch. You guys want to get that? Yeah, go comment.